In today's chess video, I'm going to share with you some super cool opening strategies, traps, and ideas in the Berlin defense, which is quite a popular opening at the Grandmaster level. We start with the moves e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. This is the famous Roy Lopez opening or the Spanish game. The idea here for white is to indirectly attack this pawn by threatening this knight which is defending it. From here, black has a lot of different options. As you can see below, the most natural move is a6 attacking this bishop. But one of the best defenses for black played at the Grandmaster level is knight f6. This is what we call the Berlin defense. If you look at the games of Magnus Carlsen, you will find that this line is played quite regularly by him, both as black and white. It was actually Vladimir Kramnik who sort of revived this opening in the year 2000 against Garry Kasparov in the World Chess Championship. Nowadays, you will find all the top grandmasters playing this opening quite frequently. So what is it that is so attractive about this opening? For starters, it is a very solid opening. It is one of the best defenses for black against the king's pawn opening. And if we talk about white, this opening gives him the option to decide how he wants to proceed. He can go for a sharp line to force a win, or he can opt for a drawish kind of a game by exchanging queens quite early. So white can play his moves accordingly. Okay, so let's see what options white has in this position. Three of the most popular moves are castling, pawn d3 and knight c3. If you're thinking about bishop c6, well, that's not quite useful because after pawn takes, knight takes, black can simply play queen d4 to regain his pawn with tempo and black ends up in a much better position. Going back, moves like knight c3 and pawn d3 look quite natural because you defend this pawn from being captured by this knight. If you go for knight c3, you transpose into the four knights game which has a lot of different variations where both sides slowly activate their pieces and launch a systematic attack. This is something we can cover in a separate video. Anyway, in this video, the two main lines I want to focus on start with either pawn to d3 or the short castle. These are the two most popular moves and cover more than 80% of the games played at the top level. Both these moves have their own purpose. The move d3 solidifies the position to enter into a game full of tactical motives and ideas, whereas the castling move leads to a line where queens are exchanged and we soon enter into more of a theoretical middle game. Let's first see what happens when white castles. This pawn is undefended, so black takes. Now there is a sneaky little trap here. Let me show it to you. We play rook e1 attacking the knight. Knight goes back to d6 attacking the bishop. Now we won't save the bishop, instead we take the pawn on e5. If black tries to be greedy and takes your bishop, then knight takes on c6, it's a discovered check to the king and this black queen is gone. Going back, in this position, instead of rook e1, a better move to play before that is d4 because it puts pressure on this center pawn which is guarding the king along this semi-open file. If pawn takes, then rook e1 and soon white will be in a very attacking position. Therefore, from here we see knight d6 attacking the bishop. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, pawn takes pawn, and the knight moves away. Queen takes queen and king takes queen. This is one of the main lines in the open variation which is also called the Berlin Wall. As you can see, this becomes a very theoretical game with not many tactical ideas on the board. White has an advantage of this passed pawn which can materialize in the endgame. Also, Black's king is stuck in the middle which White can exploit with the help of his rooks. These doubled pawns also are not such a good thing as far as Black is concerned. If we talk about the positives for Black, he has a bishop pair which could be quite useful in such an open game. Even though White has a slight advantage, it's quite difficult for either side to win this. If you're someone who's good at playing endgames, or if you want to avoid any complicated tactical combinations in the middle game, then this is a solid opening that you can go for. The major ideas for both sides are highlighted on screen. This could also be a good weapon if you're just looking to draw a game against a higher rated opponent. Okay, now let's look at another variation which is in total contrast to the Berlin Wall defense. White straight away plays d3, defending this pawn. Black can also play d6, but then this bishop is trapped inside, so the logical move is to take out this bishop first. c5 looks a good square for the bishop, eyeing down the king side. From here, you could have a few different lines. One of them could be pawn to c3, preparing to push d4. Then black castles, white castles, and then finally black plays d6, supporting the center. This is like your normal setup of the Roy Lopez with a lot of tactical possibilities.